disperse, you may be arrested and or subject to other police action. Other police action may include actual physical removal, the use of riot control agents and or less lethal munitions, which could cause risk of injury to those who remain. By order of the City of Pittsburgh Chief Police, I hereby declare this to be an unlawful assembly. I order all those assembled to immediately disperse. You must leave the immediate vicinity. If you remain in this immediate vicinity, you will be in violation of the Pennsylvania Crimes Code, no matter what your purpose is. You must leave. If you do not disperse, you may be arrested and or subject to other police action. Other police action may include actual physical removal, the use of riot control agents and or less lethal munitions, which could cause risk of injury to those who remain. By order of the City of Pittsburgh Chief Police, I hereby declare this to be an unlawful assembly. I order all those assembled to immediately disperse. You must leave the immediate vicinity. If you remain in this immediate vicinity, you will be in violation of the Pennsylvania Crimes Code, no matter what your purpose is. You must leave. If you do not disperse, you may be arrested and or subject to other police action. Other police action may include actual physical removal, the use of
Hey yo, let's go this way. You don't have this thing blocked off, don't this. Ring. Come on, you terrorist.
Okay, that's some very powerful stuff. And no, that's not a science fiction movie, and no, that's not fake. That is America in the 21st century, happening right now, happening in real life. And I just want to say, my respect goes out to Luke Radowski and We Are Change. You guys have the most guts of any people I've ever seen to be able to stand in the face of that obvious intimidation. Those guys in those black uniforms, and tell them about the Constitution that they took an oath to protect, that they're violating when they're taking away your right to peacefully assemble. So, Luke Radowski, We Are Change, rock and roll. God bless you. Now, our next article, the headline says, More Combat Enablers Afghan Bound. So it's about sending more troops into Afghanistan, which is suddenly okay because Obama's now president and a lot of the left anti-war people have been pacified, making it cool. But where I want to focus in is you scan down into the article about the third paragraph down. It says, about 1,000 such troops also will deploy to Iraq, the official said, adding that both groups are being sent in response to existing requests by theater commanders in Afghanistan and Iraq. So they sneak into there the fact that also 1,000 troops are being sent into Iraq, which doesn't make sense because TV keeps telling me that we're leaving Iraq. Never mind that we built permanent bases there under George Bush and a very, very expensive embassy that they had a big gala event to open, and that we've created a sort of permanent presence and sunk a lot of money into creating a permanent presence there, because we're leaving Iraq, even though we're sending 1,000 troops into Iraq also.
Because it's all part of the plan.
We are tracking H1N1, and health officials here in the U.S. saying it's too soon to know if a one-shot vaccine for the virus will actually be effective. The U.S. is working on an inoculation that requires 2 doses, although China and Switzerland recently announced they may have a 1-dose version. We're told American officials will release their initial results from its vaccination studies and testing later this month. With me now Dr. Kent Holtorf, who is an expert on infectious diseases. Doctor, thanks very much. We're going to put up on the screen the classic H1N1 symptoms, and I got this from the WHO and the CDC. If anybody exhibits these symptoms, what should they do? Should they go to the hospital? Should they see their doctor? What?
Well, the nice thing is it's showing that the H1N1 virus is losing its virulence. So we saw this as it came through Mexico. It lost its virulence in that the symptoms were much more mild. And that's what seems to be happening as it's making its way back through as a seasonal flu. So basically, the recommendation is the same as the seasonal flu. If you have continued fever for more than 3 hours, call your physician. If you have recurrence of fever after it goes away, if you have a high risk, including small children, consider calling your physician. If you do have, let's say, a kid turns blue, has blue fingernails, go to the emergency room. But there's no difference between who to take to the emergency room or to the doctor versus a seasonal versus a swine flu. In fact, if you had to choose, you'd probably choose at this point the swine flu over the regular seasonal flu.
Is that right? All right, now what do you think of the vaccination?
You know, I have more concern about the vaccine than I do about the swine flu. It's been rushed to market. There are high levels of adjuncts which basically make it more potent, so they can, it's kind of an unrefined method that they use. They had to use high levels of these adjuncts, including
thimerosal. It's an antiseptic preservative, and hasn't that been linked in some cases to autism?
It has, and you look at it's been shown to cause autism in children with mitochondrial dysfunction. Now, and other is controversial, though highly implicated. And the problem is you don't know if your child has mitochondrial dysfunction. I also worry about children and people who have blood-brain barrier dysfunction or it's not fully developed, which include children, pregnant women, chronic neurological illnesses, and chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia. I've seen these people have been devastated by these infections.
All right, would you give it to your kids?
I definitely would not.
You would not, all right? And in fairness, I've talked to 3 doctors in 3 days now, and all 3 said absolutely they would give it to their kids. They intend to give it to their kids. They're going to take it themselves, but you say no.
I definitely would not. I've seen it devastate people with chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia, highly implicated, again, in autism. I think you're rolling the dice. It's a proven neurotoxin, has 25,000 times the level of mercury than would be considered toxic if it was a food or water. Right. And levels get up, serum levels up to 100 times the toxic level. It's too big of a risk.
All right. Dr. Kent Holtorf, an expert on infectious diseases. That's the other side. We've heard both sides now. Thank you so much.
Okay, our next article is from the Washington Post regarding the swine flu vaccines. Mandatory flu shots hit resistance. This is by Rob Stein. With the H1N1 pandemic spreading rapidly, hundreds of thousands of doctors, nurses, orderlies, and other U.S. healthcare workers for the first time are being required to get flu shots, drawing praise from many public health authorities but condemnation from some employees, unions, and other critics who object to mandatory vaccination. One of the nation's most populous states, the country's largest hospital chain, and the Washington area's biggest private healthcare system are among those ordering influenza inoculation for healthcare employees this year, along with a growing list of medical centers and clinics coast to coast. The trend is being fueled by frustration at the stubbornly low proportion of healthcare workers who get vaccinated each year, despite years of coaxing, urging, and incentives to do so voluntarily, combined with trepidation that the swine flu pandemic could overwhelm the healthcare system, especially if many caregivers get sick too. Critics, however, say the decision to get vaccinated should remain individual, especially for the swine flu vaccine, which was rushed into production to try to blunt the pandemic's second wave. I don't want to be a guinea pig, said Orrin Banks Hopkins, 55, a clerical worker at Washington Hospital Care. I don't think I should be forced to take something I don't want to take. And then now we have a op-ed from Alternet. H1N1 just isn't that scary. Why there's no reason to go overboard with swine flu hysteria. This is by Joshua Holland. With the media pumping out story after fevered story of a unique and deadly new strain of influenza sweeping the globe, tossing words like pandemic around with little in the way of context, you'd have to be a Vulcan not to experience just a touch of panic. But is this flu really so scary? Any virus that's new to the human population poses a potential danger, but perhaps the most striking aspect of the swine flu quasi-panic is, if it had emerged just a few short years ago, we would have gone about our lives without any sense that anything unusual was even underway. After all, millions of people around the world get the flu each year, and tens of thousands die as a result. Most of them very old or very young, or people whose immune systems are already compromised. The vast majority of people who catch a case of flu feel like crap for a few days or a week,